Assalamu alaikum and welcome all. In the interest of time, it is 3 p.m. It's actually 1 past, so I'm going to take the liberty to start. I want to welcome you all to this special webinar. My name is Atika Rafiq. I'm a consultant old age psychiatrist in North Louth. I'm an old age psychiatrist. I happen to be a member of the executive committee of the Irish Pakistani Professional Association as well, and I am going to introduce IPPA formally to you. But before that, I would like to introduce to you our worthy panel members. You are looking at the poster, you're looking at their photos, they have already joined here. So I would like to welcome Dr. Aadil, who's a consultant psychiatrist in Carlow Kilkenny Mental Health Services, Dr. Seth, who is a registrar at the moment in Metro Hospital in Hematology, Dr. Mahvish Zeeshan, she's a general practitioner in County Louth, and Dr. Farah Mustafa, who happens to be a consultant in emergency medicine in Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital in Drogheda. So I welcome you all to this very special webinar, which is first of its kind in Ireland, about navigating career as an immigrant female doctor. So if you are an immigrant female doctor in Ireland, you're at the right place, and I'm delighted to have this platform provided by IPPA. If the holding slides can be stopped now so that I can share my presentation and the introduction to IPPA. So you can see some housekeeping rules. Keep yourself muted. Please ask questions only in English. Please make them very relevant to the topic on hand because time is limited. There will be, if you would like to ask questions from a specific speaker, by all means, you can direct it to them. But we will aim to bunch similar questions together and have protected time towards the end after our conversation with the worthy panel members to address them specifically. So I'm just going to, yes, so you can decide how you would like to view. If you look at the top right screen, if you're using a laptop or a desktop, you can decide how you would like to view this webinar today. So just to introduce IPPA to you. So you are aware, we're called the Irish Pakistani Professional Association. And I need to collapse this, my apologies. So basically just to introduce ourselves, it was founded with a vision to help and support the new generation. We are a group of professionals from different specialties who believe in collective efforts to promote integration into our society without compromising our cultural values. The aims and objectives reflect our ethos to highlight and showcase the achievements of Irish Pakistani professionals and their contributions to the Irish society, to provide professional support and career guidance to the young generation in Ireland, to help integrate the Pakistani and Irish communities, and to support the community welfare initiatives. At the moment, 85% of the membership of IPPA are doctors, but there is a representation from various professional walks of life, from ICT, accountants, engineers, solicitors, business managers, and others. And for operational purposes at the moment, IPPA is operating under two entities, IPPA Med and IPPA Tech. The work we have done so far reflects again, our aims and objectives, and the management is in the hands of the IPPA Executive Committee. So at the moment, Dr. Khalid Sarwar Khan is the president of IPPA. He's a consultant orthopedic surgeon with RCSI Hospital Group Northeast. He's based in the Lourdes Hospital in Drogheda. IPPA Med leads are Dr. Mustafa Mahmood and Dr. Muhammad Mukhtar. IPPA Tech leads are Mr. Khalid Abbas, who's kindly providing IT support to this webinar today, Mr. Zubair Siddiqui, who is helping him as well, Mr. Absar Mirza. Very soon, there will be a membership drive formally so that more professionals, Pakistani professionals, can join the IPA, and you will hear more about it on our various social media platforms. So this is just to give you a very quick overview of the range of events, from social events to guidance, on wide-ranging topics, will and inheritance. There have been a couple of webinars, HPAT preparation guide. There have been a couple of webinars on that just in the last couple of years. There have been a number of different webinars organized by IPPA. So I'm just going to fly through this so you can just get a sense of what IPPA has been up to over the last couple of years in particular. So you can see that a wide-ranging guidance has been provided. Majority of these sessions are recorded and they are available on the IPPA YouTube channel. The IPPA website is developing further, and you will have links there to some of these webinars. So already there have been meetings and official and unofficial channels open between mentors and mentees. Yeah, and so this is the list of the upcoming events. So thank you very much. So I'm going to just stop sharing. Yeah. So just getting to the point in question, I have a worthy panel here of 4 professionals. There are different stages in their careers from different walks of life, and I'm going to just have a brief conversation with all of my colleagues one by one. I would encourage everybody to please just ask questions, type them up in the chat. You will see at the bottom of your screens the chat forum, so you can just post your questions there. And I kind of said earlier, if there are specific questions that you would like to be addressed by specific panel members, please absolutely do so. And we'll strive to address as many as we can by the end of it. So just to introduce my colleague, Dr. Janat Aadil, to start with. She's a consultant general adult psychiatrist in Carlow Kilkenny, South Tipperary Mental Health Services, and over her career, she has led wide-ranging multidisciplinary teams across the multicultural environments, both in the city, which is Dublin itself, and rural Ireland, as well as in the UK. She has worked in the NHS Bradford District Care Trust. She has led a number of quality improvement projects, the latest being the telehealth in psychiatry to provide continuity of care through the COVID years. She has also led a quality project with CHA collaboration with RCPI. She's also an examiner with the College of Psychiatrists of Ireland. She has a keen interest in teaching and cricket. She is a certified youth cricket coach and a level 2 umpire with Cricket Ireland. She has distinction of being the first woman cricketer to play in a competitive game at Oyster Oval, County Kerry. And she has the honor of being the club person of the year for the local club in 2019. During COVID, she has volunteered as a youth coach at the local cricket club to promote well-being through sports for youth and their parents. She's also appeared on Kilkenny City Radio to promote cricket among women athletes. She is currently the Youth and Women's Chair of local cricket club and member of the Cricket Leinster Youth Subcommittee. Phew, that is quite an introduction.
Thank you very much, Atka. Thank you, IPPA.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just for the benefit of the incoming or newly arrived immigrant doctors, female doctors, would you just take us through just the highlights of your own professional career?
Sure, Atka. Thank you for kind of, giving us the opportunity to share our personal stories. Hopefully what we'll demonstrate is 4 different personal stories or, personal journeys. Obviously, I am an international medical graduate who came to Ireland through the PLAB route, basically. Now, some of the things obviously that I have had to overcome are very kind of gender specific. I was pregnant when I took my PLAB 1 exam. And the plan at that time, a very desi one, was that I'll stay back, have a kid, raise a child while my husband will go and complete his PLAB exam. As luck had it that, by the time our firstborn was 6 months old, we faced this situation where my PLAB 1 was about to expire, and my husband was still in the process of getting his PLAB through. And, we were faced with this crossroad that either I travel alone and complete my PLAB exam, or my PLAB expires. And thankfully, I'm very thankful to my family, my husband, and thankful to Allah that I did make that journey. And, Alhamdulillah, passed my PLAB, completed my basic specialist training in psychiatry, and then higher specialist training. Obviously, there's been kind of a number of obstacles and opportunities throughout BST and HST. And I suppose what happens is through experience, you learn to, shine in your own way. You learn to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And to say that, mistakes weren't made or there weren't any failures along the way would be, exaggerating the truth. And I suppose what failures and mistakes have at least taught me is what hasn't worked. It has given me a number of other opportunities to see what can work.
And what hasn't worked? What have been the hurdles, do you think?
I think being an IMG world relocation, immigrating to a different country, to a different culture, leaving behind all your family support systems is not easy. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a tribe to train a female physician or any professional. And to leave all that behind and come here and kind of, start, in my case, my firstborn was 2 years old when we were united as a family. And then the pressure of 2 jobs, 2 exams, the market pressure, the rotas, it was very, very kind of, difficult at the time. Then gender specific roles, obviously, being females, we have gender specific roles that only kind of, raising kids and giving birth. Then, throughout the system, yes, there are gender inequalities at times. Then there is in no workplace is free of I'm nearly afraid to use the word bullying, but look, there are, subtle forms of maybe not so subtle forms of bullying that, you have to face and you have to figure out ways to overcome.
So Janet, what would be your advice to a young female doctor at the moment, who's just in the first few years of trying to establish her own career pathway in Ireland, when they perceive this kind of negative challenge in the workplace that you talk about, sometimes perceived as frank bullying, sometimes it's just in other ways, subtle ways?
I think what works is obviously, look, I just start with the general kind of thing, what works for me, what has worked for me is looking after my own well-being. And that can come in different shapes and forms. For me, it starts with self-compassion. I love myself. I am very important to myself. And then, like, the other, my family, my immediate family, my family of origin, my social network, my friends, my hobbies, you just gave a kind of, you shown some light on it there. All those help, in terms of maintaining my own well-being. And then, there's the grit. And grit is, being able to walk through adversity. I mean, you can't imagine a life without adversity or obstacles, and having that, passion and self-belief to keep plowing through whatever adversity or whatever curveball is thrown your way. And then, like, when Lamia gives you success, remembering to be humble, being thankful for all the kind of, the positive things that are there in your life. I have personally experienced, like, workplace bullying. It's not easy. It's very stressful, but I've had to go back to the basics, what works for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing that you brought up the whole idea of your personal attitude, your journey that brings resilience. It can go in a different way, but isn't it just going back to basics and self-management? I don't think they teach any leadership and management course in the country where they don't really focus also on self-management and time management and your personal attitude and understanding towards that and that self-value, your own self-esteem, not lose sight of your own self-worth. So I think it is absolutely, such an essential piece of advice. So Janet, can I bring you to this negative? Oh, it's a perception. It's often a negative perception that, your work life will impact your personal life, right? Um, what do you think of it? Is it a negative impact all the time? Does it have a positive impact sometimes too? What would you view it from your own learning and observation?
I think it works both ways, Atka. My work life obviously affects my personal life, especially, if we are in demanding jobs, which require 24-hour on call. And it will have an effect, like, in terms of child minding, in terms of, if I have exam pressures. And similarly, like, personal lives have impact on work life as well. And I suppose what happens is, like, I'd go back to kind of playing it by your strength. And what happens is, certainly in my kind of personal journey, I have learned through experience, and perhaps the strengths I have today are very different to the strengths maybe that I started with. But I do fall back on my strengths, and then kind of, the support networks, they're both valuable, inputs I've had from work colleagues, senior, junior, my immediate family that I have here, my friends, and then my, kind of family of origin.
Yeah.
So to say, like, um, you, I think it works both ways. It can have both positive and negative kind of, impact.
Yeah.
There are pros and cons to,
Yeah.
whatever way you
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, you brought up such an important point that I want to discuss with you, the importance of networks. How can a young female doctor in workplace build those kinds of networks in your view, and then in her personal life, new to Ireland, and just from your own personal experience? I know it's not one size fits all. Everybody's realities are different, but what have you learned in that, building those? How do you build those networks?
I think people who are listening to this webinar are very lucky. They have already been given a platform. There is active support available for you to network. I think it takes time, for when we came to Ireland, it took time. It took time to get to know people. It took time to understand the social norms. It took time to understand the cultural kind of, social boundaries within the culture. And I think what people, sometimes people get lost in the number. I don't think having a lot of kind of social contacts is the goal here. Even if you have a few, and if they're good quality support systems or networks, I think that is enough. Certainly it has worked in kind of my case. My best friend was here in Ireland, and whatever little networks I had was through that lead I had. But I have certainly kind of relied on the quality of network rather than quantity, because sometimes it can be difficult to manage that with the workload. I think it's important to realize, the people you're surrounding yourself with, are they going to accept you for who you are, celebrate you for your success, and acknowledge, you for who you are.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Janet. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. So I'm going to move on to a rising star next, Dr. Karen Seth. So Karen, if you don't mind turning your camera on as I introduce you. Dr. Karen Seth is currently working as a hematology registrar in Mater Hospital, Dublin. She will be starting her higher specialist training in hematology from July. Through her career, she has worked in large teaching hospitals such as University Hospital Limerick. She's worked in Beaumont Hospital in Dublin. She's now in the Mater. She has published her work in 2021 on the role of PERT, the pulmonary embolism response teams, and has contributed to research into the outcomes after acute pulmonary embolism in the Irish population of more than 1 million people. She is presently involved in the development of PERT in the Mater Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Karen.
Thank you, Dr. Atka, for having me. Thank you.
Good. It's really good to have you. So, Karen, just as an opening, would you be able to just take us through the career journey, that you had to date?
Yeah, I would start, as Dr. Janet said, like everybody's journey is different. So
I have lost your audio, Karen.
Dr. Karen, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Dr. Karen, you've gone mute somehow. Yeah. Sorry. So do you want to start again? Sorry, just in the last minute. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just saying that my journey started, like I entered into motherhood first before entering into my professional life. So my first son was only 4 months old when I started my house job. And so like this webinar is all about highlighting the difficulties or the hurdles. So my very first struggle was obviously overcoming the feeling of guilt, leaving such a young baby and going to work. So that was the first thing. And then I moved to Ireland. Actually, I moved on a spouse visa. My husband was already here. I had a gap of about 4 years. Which was both on purpose. I decided myself, and then I had to take that gap as well because it took some time to get the registration, and then started working here as an SHO, as a medical SHO, and then had my BST done recently, and then working as a hematology registrar, and then inshallah starting the next step in my career as training. So at each step, there has been some struggles, and obviously with the support system I had in place, I managed to progress. And thanks to Allah and my family and friends and everybody for that.
And Karen, again, you brought up the support system because it is so important. And what is your experience? Were there any avenues that you used in your personal life and then in your professional life separately to build those networks?
So the first and the most important support system for me, I would say, was from home. Obviously, my husband, who is always pushing me, who's always there to support me. I would just say that I did my BST in Limerick, and my family couldn't move. My husband and my kids couldn't move. So they were here in Dublin, and I was commuting between Limerick and Dublin on alternate days or like twice weekly. So if I didn't had that support from my husband, that
have I lost your audio again?
I wouldn't have been able to do that. Then the support from my family, like my parents and my in-laws who were there as well. And then a very good network of friends around who were always there if I needed anything. That's what made me go through those 2 hard years.
It was good to know. One of the questions, and I hope you don't mind me asking because it'd be relevant, so relevant, I think, to so many people attending today. And is this perception, there's a stereotype, in the West in general, in Irish workplaces, there is a stereotype about Muslim women carrying their identity. And did you ever think or feel that it impacted did you suffer for it to carry, by carrying your Muslim identity?
I would say, working here in Ireland, I have faced both situations, like the contrary as well. So like carrying my Muslim identity, I haven't faced that much, if I say bullying again, like Dr. Jannat said. Instead, when I started working, I wasn't wearing hijab, and with my name, people used to confuse me that if it is from that I'm from India and I'm not Muslim. So I had that many people asking me, and when I started wearing hijab, and like when I can be identified immediately that I'm a Muslim, very, very, I would say rarely I have faced like being a Muslim female, people would treat me differently. But no, I would say that no, I would be happy the way I'm working and the way I'm being treated, both by the patients, by colleagues, by seniors, by juniors. I haven't personally faced that much, to be honest.
And it has to be said that, Ireland is a nice place. There is a greater level of understanding. I'm mother to a new medical graduate, who at a young age started to wear hijab and, wants to carry that Muslim identity. And, I do feel that there is a rising acceptance, would you say? Would you have felt that this is more of a stereotype, because I've heard it from a number of other colleagues and friends who carry their identity with pride, that it isn't, such a big hurdle as it is perceived to be.
No, it is not. I haven't felt at any stage that it is a hurdle in my progression or in my workplace that I have been told, no, you can't do that because you're wearing hijab or you're a Muslim even. Like, no, I have the equal opportunities as anybody else, or any even like if you're talking about just the females, if there is a male doctor, and I got the equal opportunities as well to progress and to excel.
Excellent, excellent. It's good to know, and I'm sure it's very heartening for people who are listening. So just to bring you back again to the research opportunities, how was your experience? Did you feel that, it was sort of natural for you as a female to get the opportunity as your male counterparts?
It was easy. I don't know if people would find it hard. I was lucky when I started in Mater Hospital. I just sat with a couple of my consultants saying that I want to apply for the heart specialist training this year, and that I have to work on my CV. And these are the things I haven't done. Like, I haven't done research, I don't have a good publication, so I want to work on that. And they I'm very lucky again that they provided me with that opportunity, that this kind of research is going on, and if you want to be a part of this, that would be great. And they guided me at every step, so I was lucky in that.
Yeah, but it is so, and I think there is a common theme that we find as trainers, that there is a variation that comes from that baseline default attitude of a trainee. You can be a man or a woman, but if you are actively seeking opportunities, if you're showing willingness to learn, people are willing to help. You know, people are willing to bring on board the extra pair of hands that will collect data. Isn't it, Karen?
That's so true. I'm glad you said that. That's very true. I would just say that when I did my BST, as I said, I was commuting and it was 2 tough years. I did my MRCP exam at that time. I was commuting. So the last year when I was in Beaumont, like we start in July, and then around October, November time, when the applications open, one of the consultants asked me, "Are you applying for HST?" And I said no, like I wasn't ready. I think I had 2 very hard years. And like he asked me, "Why are you not applying?" And I said, like, I think.
You're gone mute again.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
So I said, I think I need more time and I'm not ready. So like, as I said, the next year when I started in Matter, like in the first week or second week, I started looking for that. That's my plan for this year. And that's what my short-term goals are, to reach my ultimate goal then. And I was provided with all the opportunities. I was given the same opportunity as they would give to any Irish doctor, to any male doctor. There was no like gender-based or any other like problems that I was
I hear you.
facing.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant to know. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Kiran. You are really a rising star and a role model for the young doctors in the country, and I hope people can find guidance from your story. So I'm going to move on to our next colleague on the panel, another rising star, Dr. Mahvish Zeeshan. So Dr. Mahvish Zeeshan is now working as an assistant GP in County Meath. She completed her MRCP within 3 years of starting her BST in medicine in Ireland. She then moved to GP training. Within 4 years, she attained her MICGP. And I had the pleasure of attending her teaching for the psychiatrists in Loudmead Mental Health Services, a refresher lecture on reading ECGs, and it was really the best that I ever attended. So she's a fantastic teacher. And her special interest includes women's health, and she has established her practice in that, as well as the general GP. She's developing her new skill set in aesthetics presently on the side as well. So welcome, Mahvish, to this webinar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atika. Salam to everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this platform. I'll just start off with my career journey. Is that okay?
Perfect.
So basically, I graduated in 2005 from Dow University of Health Sciences in Pakistan, then did 1-year house job training in 2006. And then I basically got married. I came here, had my two kids. They have 1-year gap in between them. Then I just shut myself down. I just didn't work at all. I took a 5 years gap. I just wanted to look after my babies, give them time, give myself time. And in that time, I actually didn't do anything, honestly. So it was a full-time mom at home. Then after 5 years, I decided I'll go back to my career. Had a very good circle of friends. We were all at the same level, started working, studying for the licensing exams, gave that, then got my first job in Mater Hospital, and started as an SHO in medicine in 2011. That was very challenging in the beginning because it was a huge transition from being a total mom at home, and then the next day I'm a working SHO with expectations in a busy big hospital. So it was a huge transition, a lot of challenges at that time. But anyways, was able to come by them because of again, as you all said, very good support from family, friends, husband. Friends, I have to say, hats off to them. Friends circle was brilliant. And then so all this support did help me, and I just carried on. In the beginning, I did have these thoughts like, look, I don't think I can go on. And I just felt it was so stressful in the beginning. But anyways, we kept moving, and after a few months, I felt better, more confident. Then my clinical skills started picking up. Worked for two years as standalone posts in different specialities. Worked between different hospitals, Cavan, Navan, Drogheda, Mater. So I rotated in all those hospitals. I did my BST after 2 years, and then two years of BSc. So in total, I did five years of medicine. And then the last year, after finishing BST, I did 1 year of registrar post as well in medicine. And then I decided I won't be able to carry on like this. Like, I just needed some stability in life, more work-life balance. I just needed less stressful hours, all of that, you know. And then my friends gave me the option of coming into GP land. And then I, you know, it was an informed decision. I looked it up and I thought it was a better option. So I switched basically. Went into GP land. 4 years I did my GP training. So 2 years of, again, hospital medicine, rotating in different specialities. And then I went into the GP practices. So 2 years of GP practice. And in between I got pregnant and I had my third baby. So in the third year, I took my maternity leave. I actually took a year's gap again because when my little one was a year old hardly, so I had to take it. First 6 months were paid, and then the next 6 months I took an extended unpaid leave, then came back to training again. In the fourth year, I did my exams and I finished it, and then I just finished last year and I'm full GP. Qualified now.
So Mahvish, one of the highlights, one of the very interesting things you mentioned were these really critical decisions. Others have touched on it, but do you know, this kind of long career gap that you felt was the need of the time, and then navigating, you know, move back to the workplace. And you know, what was the psychological impact, if at all? You said there were difficulties. Is it confidence? Is it doubts? You know, and how long does it take to get the rust off of the brain, you know, getting back
into... I agree with that term. I did feel rusty. That's the exact term I would give myself. So yes, I actually plunged into it. I just took a dive. Like, I just started as a SHO, and they were they had expectations. Obviously, I was working as an SHO, not an intern. There were a lot of challenges in the beginning. As I said, I was a full-time mom, and then I was working in a very busy hospital, a big hospital. So every small issue was huge at that time. Like, the psychological stresses of the things, how to go about those things, that was huge. Like, the clinical side of mine was suppressed, was overshadowed by the stressors that I had at that time. I did feel overwhelmed in the beginning, but then again, I had lovely support, lovely friends. Farah, I have to give hats off to her. She was very helpful for me. Like, small things like doing bloods, like where to get the stuff, how to do it. My intern actually had to show it to me, like how to do it.
Of course,
like using the computer. Like, I was so slow at it. I remember two of my colleagues, interns, they were actually racing and typing in to see who wins, and I was like and then looking for where is and it was challenging. Like, I felt so less confident, and it wasn't the clinical side of it. It was all the things, how to go about it. Like,
for the systems.
I'll actually give you advice. If you have no clinical experience in a foreign environment, in which, like a foreign hospital abroad, if you have no clinical experience, do go for a month of at least observership, just to know how to get around things, like small things, like doing codexes, how to do that, how to write up notes, how to say the history out. Like, I knew how to do it. I knew the pattern, but in the beginning it was stressful, and it did take me a month or 6 weeks to come around those things. And once the stresses were kind of a bit relieved, then the clinical side of me came out. Then I started feeling like a doctor. Okay, no, I am a doctor. I know my stuff. So then obviously my friends and my husband, and another side of it was that was very challenging was I was a very pampered child. I always um, like commute was a big issue for me. My back home, I had my own driver, I had my own car, and then over here I had never used buses or commutes like trains and stuff. And my husband was a star at that time. He actually managed my commute, so he was doing my
Wow.
pick and drop services for me.
Mashallah.
I mean, he was very good at that time, and I have to give it to him. Like, he helped me. If he hadn't done it, I might have given up. So it was a big support for me. And then I would again stress to all the ladies here that do try to get into driving and get your driving license early as possible, because the independence that you'll feel once you're driving you're on your own, it's just priceless. Like I mean, and you do have good commute. I'm not saying you will have trouble if you're not driving. You do have good commute system, like you could train and buses and everything. If you can get your head around it, well and good. But driving and doing, I mean, that gives you an independence. That's good to have.
That was a very rich story with excellent advice, and thank you so much to share that, Mahvish, because it resonates with a lot of people, people with young families. And one of the message that comes through is that it does get easier as you build your confidence, as you do go through, various stages of your career. Janet kind of mentioned it as well. It gets easier with time in many ways, isn't it?
Oh, many ways. You have brilliant support out there. I mean, everybody has different pace, different interests, different passions. I cannot advocate for anyone in particular or women even as a whole, because everybody's life story is different. But you do have support there. Like, as you said, that's a very good point, that if you show your interest to learn, people are there to take your hand. Like, they will help you out. In my career as a GP, one of my GP colleagues, Dr. Kamal, she helped me so much that I am into women's health just because of her. I mean, and she actually pushed me into getting a job, like, and the place where I'm working now is just excellent. I just love it. So there is brilliant support there. I mean, the only thing that I felt, I wouldn't even say it was a resistance in my career. Like, it was like the people, I mean, I'm not an Irish, to be honest. Like, I do have a passport, but I'm not an Irish in the end. Like, I am, my skin is different. But they can say, oh, I don't want to see this doctor, I want to see my Irish doctor, and that's totally accepted by me, by others, and it should be accepted by everyone, because in the end they do look up for an Irish doctor. But then once they know you, once they come around and talk to you, then they are absolutely okay coming back to you, and then that is not a issue at all. A lot of support out there.
You really brought up quite a lot of interesting and sensitive topics there in the last 10 minutes. I really, really appreciate that. But just in the interest of time, Mahvish, I'll move on now to a true star again, Dr. Farah Mustafa. And I'm going to introduce her to you now. Dr. Farah Mustafa is a consultant in emergency medicine at Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital in Drogheda. She holds the honor of being the first Muslim female in Ireland to have attained a higher specialist training post-first in emergency medicine, and then for being the first Muslim woman consultant in emergency medicine. She is pretty much the only female consultant in emergency medicine, I think, still in the region, in a male-dominated specialty. She's a keen interest in teaching, and she's an honorary senior lecturer with RCSI. She's run the first and the only advanced hazmat life support course in Ireland. In her personal time, she runs a religious class for teenagers involving discussion sessions and questions and answers on topics that she prepares beforehand. I have learned that she has also aced the junior cert curriculum because she teaches her son at home. So, Dr. Farah, welcome. And I'm just delighted that you could make time to come today. So would you give us a brief overview of how the career transitioned from, from when you arrived in Ireland and the stages it went through?
Thanks, Atika. I have to say I feel humbled to be here today. I'm absolutely in awe, and I'm extremely honored to be here with such wonderful speakers on the panel. And I'm amazed how each of you have really inspirational stories to tell and the wonderful journeys you've shared. Talking about my journey, I graduated in Pakistan. I got married during my intern year, or house job, as we call it back home, like a lot of girls do back home during house job. My husband was working here in Ireland, so my migration to Ireland was for love. I took a 4 years break to start my family first, so my husband could know me as a person. My son could know me as a mother rather than a full-time working doctor. After my time out, I started teaching anatomy and physiology to nursing students part-time. That gave us all a transition phase for me going back to full-time work from being a full-time mother. I must say, getting the first clinical post in Ireland, it wasn't easy. I wanted to train in emergency medicine, but I didn't have any clinical experience. I'd applied all over the country to all emergency departments in the country, but I didn't even get shortlisted initially. At that time, my husband was working as a manager in St. James's Hospital. He came home one day and he advised me that there was this option of doing a clinical observership, and he could speak to one of the consultants there if I was interested. And this is how it all started. I started a clinical observership with Dr. Nasir Mahmood, who was a gastroenterologist in St. James's Hospital. May Allah bless his soul. I'm sure you'll meet many doctors today who will sincerely say what a great man and mentor he was. We lost him very early, unfortunately. So while I was doing this observership with him, a post came up in emergency medicine just 2 weeks before the start of the rotation in July. So I dropped out to go to Australia. So Dr. Nasir Mahmood introduced me to the emergency medicine consultant in James's. She offered me a clinical attachment for 2 weeks first, and after those 2 weeks, I was offered the SHO post. And from there on, everything started to fall into place.
Yes.
So when I started work, I had a 1.5-year-old boy. I had to make sure the work-life balance was set right. I tried my best to work hard when I worked and enjoy hard with family and friends during my time off. Now, I have to say, when I started working here in 2008, there wasn't a streamlined BSD, basic training scheme for emergency medicine. So I tried to do the clinical jobs, courses, non-clinical work like audits, presentations that helped me in maximizing my points for the HSD, the higher training application in emergency medicine. And believe me, I was told plenty of times by plenty of people that I didn't stand a chance for getting the higher training scheme. But there were also some great mentors who advised me that I had to make sure that my application is the best when I submit it for HSD. And then there is no reason why I can't do the best interview when my application gets shortlisted for being best. In 2013, when I started the HSD in emergency medicine, I was told by the same mentor that my application was the highest scoring application that year. I'm not saying that just to blow my own trumpet. If I'm able to convey my message to even one listener today, that hard work does pay off, make yourself eligible for what you want to achieve, I suppose I will consider it as a mission accomplished. Now, did the HSD years come easy? Not at all. My husband, my child, family, in-laws, friends, colleagues, everyone supported me immensely. I couldn't accomplish any of this without the support I had. There were times, especially during the final years of HSD, when I was working full-time, sitting the final part of the fellowship exams, managing the NCHD rota, writing up a national clinical guideline, preparing posters for publications, running 2 quality improvement projects in the hospital, and supervising every audit that happened in the department, completing and writing my research, as well as helping my son with his studies and his SIGMAs, while trying to maintain a healthy family and social life. So there were days when I felt like 24 hours in the day weren't enough. But believe me, hard work pays off. And I can say with personal experience and after listening to all the wonderful speakers here before me, hard work does pay off.
Yeah.
So that's my journey from 2008
yeah,
to
no, it's absolutely brilliant to hear, about the struggle and the rewards then of the struggle as well. And how is it, can I just ask you as a woman, how is it to work in a male-dominated specialty at the moment?
Yeah, there are perks as well as the negative aspects of it.
Okay.
Irish do kind of share a cultural trend with us a bit, where a woman is very well respected and not disadvantaged. So being a Muslim, obviously, I'm the one who fasts during Ramadan amongst all the consultants. So they all support me in doing that.
Excellent.
As well as that, I'm the only woman. So if I have, for example, one particular morning in the month, if I have to do the school run in the morning, if I have to be in the parents teachers meeting, I can support it for doing
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And I have to say, in a way, I know a lot of people feel that as immigrant we can be disadvantaged, and I've been listening to previous talks as well. Now, this would sound offensive to some people, but a lot of our senior Irish colleagues have actually faced this while they were training in the UK, where the pubs in the UK said dogs in Irish not allowed.
Yeah.
So the here is more accepting towards immigrants because they have faced these issues themselves.
Yeah.
And my mentors have told me when they
Yeah.
were in UK, they had to read that on the walls of the pub.
Yeah.
So they can relate with the situation we are in.
Yeah.
So not just a female or not just an immigrant, there are many challenges when you start in a new system, and some of them Mahvish has already spoken about them. Did I feel disadvantaged in any shape or form being a Muslim or being an
Yeah.
immigrant?
Yeah.
When you're competing to get into a training scheme, there is a different marking system for the non-Irish or non-EU people compared to the Irish or non-EU people. But where in the world the quota system doesn't exist? Anywhere you go, and there is preferential marking scheme for the natives or for the Aborigines or disadvantaged people of the society. So in some shape or form, the quota system exists everywhere. So we shouldn't aim for being equal to our to the other people we're competing against. We
Yeah.
should aim for being better at all times. And I know
Yeah.
it doesn't come easy. And a lot of people have already said it before me. Every person is walking in their own shoe. There is a right thing and a right time for you, which isn't the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
You work to make your life better, not to make it
Yeah.
miserable. If the right
Yeah.
thing for you in this moment is to achieve the highest point in your career, work hard for it and go get it. If the right thing for you right now is to be with your elderly parents or parents-in-law, a sick sibling, a loving partner, a child, or a friend in need, or focusing on your own physical and mental well-being, then you go do that and do it well. This isn't a race or a competition. Some of you might be happy in doing a 9 to 5 consistent middle grade job in a settled location, and some of you might get paid pleasure in achieving specialist training, completing your rotations and exams. Similarly, some of you might have responsibilities or pleasures in life that take priority over a clinical job or work right now. Relish what you have right now, and whatever you choose to do it well.
Yeah.
What's right for me might not be right for you.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, this is absolutely golden words. I'm glad IPPA is recording the webinar. I think these truer words have never been spoken. And one of the things I was going to ask you, you've already answered. You're a strong proponent of, set your own goals, see where you can be, and define, how you're going to get there, and decide on the steps, and then not judge yourself and be too harsh if life gives you lemons, if your reality is very different. Perhaps there are other things that make you happier, that make you more content, that you want to do, isn't it? But
Absolutely.
when you are in workplace, not to be defeated by the stereotype that you cannot progress. If you really want to get to a certain point, to kind of carve out your path, and it may take longer, isn't it? But you get
Absolutely.
there. Yeah, yeah. So it is absolutely brilliant. What an inspiration. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Janet, I see 65 chat messages. I think your work was cut out for you to dig out questions. Are there any for the panel?
There are questions. I've grouped together some of the questions. So one of the questions that keep coming up is gap. If there's a gap in CV, I don't think any of us is here without a gap. Some of us have mentioned it and some of us haven't mentioned it. So I just address that and then I'll pose the rest of the questions to you. Gap in CV is okay, as long as you're honest about it. And I see some people use the word cover your gap. So please don't cover your gap with any story that you cannot substantiate. If there was a gap, you weren't working, that's it. If there was a gap, you were doing some other job, then that's it. As long as you can account for the number of years that you were not working in the medical profession. There's a question about job opportunities and, that first job, that difficulty that I think Farah has touched upon and we have all faced. That first job process, would someone like to address that? People are applying for jobs. Some are not being shortlisted, some are being shortlisted, but they're not getting interviews. Some are interviewing and are being put on panel. That first breakthrough, how hard is it? What can people do?
Yeah, can I just again maybe invite Kiran? What was your experience? You're the newest in the workforce, nearly. In a way.
Yeah, I didn't mention, but I did struggle after a gap of 4 years to get my first job as well. I didn't had recent work experience. I didn't had fresh references. So I think I skipped that part, that I did decide to go back to Pakistan and work there for 6 months and got some experience and got some fresh references. And then I applied for jobs here. I didn't mention one more thing, that I wanted to do gynae and obs instead of medicine.
Oh, you're gone mute again.
And looking for the jobs in gynae, and I couldn't get any attachment or even any observership in that. And then at that time, there were more jobs in medicine. So I just changed my mind. But to get the first job was hard, I would say that.
And part of that is that flexibility of mind, because I am a great believer in the potential of a doctor. Doctors come through one of the hardest courses, known. So, they have potential for more than one specialty. And I think part of the wisdom of progressing in your career is to be open-minded about, what can be done with your skills, and how do you find that middle ground to identify the doors that are easier opened than others, or comparatively easier opened than others. In terms of competition, in terms of what you perceive as work-life balance, isn't it? And Mahvish talked about it as well earlier, that you have to have the flexibility to jump ship if you feel it is having too much of an impact in a certain direction, and you want to find your niche somewhere else. And, I am an example of somebody who was arrogant enough to think very little of psychiatry that I love with a passion never known to me before, and old age psychiatry in particular. And if I did not have the wherewithal at the time that I was progressing through my career, I would have made the mistake of, sorry, with all due respect to everybody else, got into medicine, and suffered through it, and never have known psychiatry, and the love I would have for it. So it is about that attitude and flexibility too, and not worry about it. Totally agree with Janet about the gap, and not to produce things that remain, that you cannot substantiate. I have been in interview panels, but I have also seen, colleagues coming into workforce who have very frankly told the interviewers for their first job that I took a time out for family reasons altogether, but I'm extremely keen. I still remember one of the Irish colleagues after an interview said, I interviewed such and such junior doctor, Pakistani immigrant, and she said, well, it's my time now. I've supported my husband to establish his career, and it's my time now, and this is the way that, she was impressive in terms of, just I suppose, getting into the first job. She had done her preparation for the interview. And again, highlighting that IPPA has a number of webinars recorded about interview skills. You must prepare for that first interview when you get it. Well, like you would prepare for an exam, So back to you, Janet.
Just on that note, I think Mustafa has posted as well. IPPA have a full YouTube uploaded on interview skills and CV preparation. So please do have a look at that. The second question that keeps popping up is about childminding. I just have a few facets to it. Number one is, can people find a Pakistani childminder? Can people leave a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old alone at home? Can someone survive just with the childminding support as a single mother?
Okay, so Farah, how do you feel about taking that question?
So I have to be honest, a lot of sacrifices have to be made when you're trying to have a career as well as a child. For my own personal experience, we were, like me and my husband, we were both working in St. James's Hospital. I was lucky that my husband could kind of design his rota around mine, but that wasn't always possible. There were loads of times when both of us were working the same weekend or working the late shift. We used to have a handover at the gate of James's, a buggy handover, where I was handing over the buggy to him, or he was handing over the buggy to me. And then when I started doing the HSD, there were rotations. So I said to my husband at that time that I cannot take one parent away from my child when both of us are there by the grace of Allah. Now my husband said he will go part-time and commute from Sligo to Dublin. And if that doesn't work out, he will let me proceed in my career and won't work for a little bit. And if he hadn't made that great sacrifice, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. And then the support structure I had with my friends, if there wasn't any childminder available, one of the friends would always step up and help out with some great neighbors as well.
Yeah.
So childminding is a big issue, obviously, when we are so far away from the families. Now, there is help available.
Yeah.
Good,
I think
good
part
people
of it
come
is,
to good people, basically,
yeah.
and the support of
Yeah.
the friends I've had here, I wouldn't have been able to manage. Without the support of my husband, I wouldn't have been able to manage.
But Farah, it is true that people's realities are very different. You already kind of touched on it in the initial interview, and the way I would view, and you know, from my observation and learning over the years, and just to very specifically address the question is where do you find the childminder? Can you leave a child, you know, in whose care you would leave a child 9 or 10 years old, and how you're gonna manage? Childminding is a very challenging task for every working woman, and something that needs proper planning, not just between, you know, the existing. It's not always the husband who may or may not be your network of support, but what you need to do also is, as very early on after your immigration, really, it is about, goes back to networks, and it goes back to where you build and find your network. So for me, there were a number of avenues. So my children went to a school, and you know, I was involved in every spare time I was involved in my children's school. I made friends through there. I did not shy away from, when I moved in, from any, it's well before the time WhatsApp was a thing. So it wasn't a thing back then. So meeting with other Pakistani families and give and take, establishing where I would take kids for childminding in my free time, and they started doing the same. So, you know, you build your network of supports through goodwill, give and take. I did get formal childminding through my career time and time again. So you have a whole range of professional options. Very early on, you may not be able to afford a nanny. You need to really think what you can or cannot do. You may be able to afford an au pair, you know, and there are au pair networks, information available online. But if you're specifically looking for a Muslim childminder, the avenues to search for such information is often through your local halal shop, or, you know, local friend circles, word of mouth. I have over the years put up notices in all of the local community notice boards looking for childminders, and would have then done Garda vetting myself for who I was employing, you know, for the hours that we needed the childminding. Both myself and my husband commuted quite a lot through our professional careers, very, very long commutes. And we really need to have a very reliable network of support between childminders and friends. So so this is my advice, is that don't let that become a point of defeat. You know, it is essential, as every one of us has mentioned, you know, your network of support. It may or may not be, you know, immediately your husband. Some people are unmarried. Some people just don't have the kind of relationship where you want to just sit down and establish where is any one person in the equation is trying to get, and what is, again, what are the hurdles, how are you going to manage them? But those are the avenues that tend to work for quite a lot of people. Yeah. Okay,
So
next.
just to summarize, there are childminding, kind of professional childminding services or avenues that can be looked into. You can find a Pakistani childminder if they are trained and registered. Advises to not use an untrained person. And like Farah said, that's a big no. You cannot leave an underage child at home alone just to mind themselves. And actually, one of the things is I do know a few single mothers who are managing a job and obviously kind of raising their kids as well. It's probably kind of, double trouble, it's doubly hard for them to manage it. But look, there are people who are doing it. Then there's a question about kind of finding that first attachment, that first breakthrough. I'm probably in the kind of a same or similar boat where, my first job, I made more than 100 applications, and after 100, I stopped counting. And I did do a clinical attachment as well. So that first breakthrough, even if it's a clinical attachment, how would people go about it?
Mahvish, you navigated those gaps and coming back. What way did you find the struggle?
So to start with, your CV has to be very strong, and then your interview, questions should be also, you should have all the things in the interview, pointing out everything that you're doing, that you have done. Like I did have a few audits and I think one publication as well. So they were kind of a star in my CV. So I didn't face difficulty at that time. So I did get my first job easily because probably my CV, you just have to sell yourself very well over there at that time, you're able to get through it. It's not difficult to get a post, especially these days as well. There is always I feel there's always a availability. Like if you have your CV and if you go for a post, just be honest with your career gaps, what have you. And one more thing that is important is career progression. Like for example, I went into GP. I've seen quite a few being rejected posts for one reason, and that's that career progression. People fail to understand how important it is. Like giving a gap is a separate thing. That's not working at all for family reasons, and being honest about it, that's fine. But if you're doing if you're in a post, if you're working, just doing 9 to 5 and doing your on calls, and but not progressing in your career, that's a very big negative point to your CV. This will make you lose, because you have to keep going, doing courses, seminars, attend seminars, doing audits, doing some research, doing exams. If you're not doing your exams and you're just doing, like I've seen so many people who are 5 to 10 years in medicine and they couldn't get into GP. Why? Because there was no career progression. So that's the reason they were rejected, being given a post, as they were not even shortlisted. Why? Because there wasn't any career progression. So I think that's important to know, that you need to have some stars in your CV, and you should be able to, sell yourself very well at that time. Tell them what you can do.
So look, we're well beyond time. So we have to really wrap it up at this point. And just some parting words, I would urge everybody today who attended, with a big note of thanks again, especially to the worthy panel, who have really shared their personal stories and given us, some really valuable advice, not easily got elsewhere sometimes, But I would urge you to just take a minute out after this webinar and Google a question. Who was the first Pakistani medical graduate to ever graduated in Pakistan and then got their MBBS degree? You're not going to find it. You probably won't find it, but what you will find is a great number of myths, stereotypes, and that is that, I suppose the perception and attitude that I find very defeatist for young women, in the workforce. So yeah, do look it up. And I just think that this is the cloud of misperceptions and attitudes that we must rise above, and the glass ceiling that we must break if we are to break the biggest barrier And the biggest barrier is actually not out there. Many, many successful women leaders of the world, the biggest barrier exists within the limits of our own map. It is our mind, it's the barriers we perceive, within our minds. So, and that's the ceiling that needs to be broken. Thank you very much for sharing your advice and the tech support from IPA and IPA to provide us